and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm TJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. On this week's show, that list includes Pikmin Bloom, Dungeon Encounters, and Bonfire Peaks.
Dungeon Encounters?
But yeah. It's a rough start already, man.
Well, it's alright. I'll allow it. Do you ever feel like you need a weird, distinctive twist when you open up the show? I feel like we have a pretty straight opening.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we need something wacky? Do we need a morning zoo vibe? Do we need somebody making funny noises?
Let's not go full morning zoo, please. I recently learned of this Twitter account, though, that is David Lynch wishes you a good Friday morning. Have you seen this?
I've seen David Lynch do the weather. I don't know if I've seen the Good Friday morning thing.
Yeah, well, it comes from his weather report.
Oh, gotcha.
But this is very surreal to me because if you have not seen that and you only see this Twitter account, you're just like, why is David Lynch recording these things where he just says it's Friday? Like, I'm sure he doesn't use Twitter. But, so if you've seen the weather, he does this every day almost, right? Where he says, hello, it's, November the 1st.
Beautiful sunny day in Los Angeles.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on Fridays, he says, it's November whenever, and if you can believe it, it's a Friday once again. Although he has the accent, so he says it's a Friday once again. And that's how it started. But if you watch the recent ones, he just stretches it out so much. He just says, it's November whenever, and if you can believe it, it's a Friday once again. I'm just like, look, David Lynch, what are you doing? How did you start doing this? Where did this idea come from?
David Lynch committed to a thing several years ago and now is afraid to stop.
He's committed to it. But now I just think constantly whenever it just lives in my head now.
I admire his consistency.
If you can believe it.
Excellent.
But
That's
anyway,
cool.
My point is, if you can believe it, it's another episode of the Video Game Hangover show.
Just like clockwork.
Yeah.
You could set your watch by it.
Just something, a little off-kilter. Don't even acknowledge it, just move immediately on to the next bit.
We've been through a few variations in the intro. We've mixed it up a bit over the years. I think this current version of it has been kind of the longest running, but I've had a few other little quirky things over the time that we've been doing this.
I don't even remember the previous one. I remember when you used to throw in a random news item.
Yes.
It would just make me nervous every week.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm filled with regret over some of those things. Not me at my best, but
no regrets.
We eventually segued into the internet's only video game podcast. I think we stuck with that one for a little while.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one. Okay.
Yep. And now it's just hello. This is a podcast.
Hello.
I'm Randy. Hello. It's Friday.
The least abrasive intro just appeals to everyone.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. I had a coworker once who was talking about podcasts that she liked and podcasts that she did not, and was complaining that she's like, I keep listening to podcasts where the inevitable gaggle of white guys who are hosting it just keep talking about whatever beer they're drinking before they do the show. And she's like, and I don't care. And I'm like, oh, do we do that? We don't really do that. Just once a year we do that.
No. Once a year.
Yep. And
Super
I try to
Mario
avoid
Brothers, Legend of Zelda. I also heard that people get very impatient if you don't immediately jump into video games, so I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Is that what was happening? Yeah.
Yeah. AK-47, Fortnite.
These are the only games you could think of? Yeah.
I'm just, going for the wide appeal.
Oh, sure. Just wideband. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. I try to avoid the YouTube, what's up, guys? Can't stand that either. So just, we kind of do our thing. Just kind of say hello. Welcome. I'm Randy.
I think we stay pretty focused.
Yeah. Yeah. This intro thing gets a little meandering sometimes, but...
Yes. Yeah. Case in point. We're no David Lynch, though.
No, certainly not. I would kill for his audience, though. That'd be fine. Here at the top of the show, speaking of video games, we should mention that this Saturday, November 6th, is Extra Life 2021.
It's here.
It is.
This is the week. If you can believe it. It's Extra
for those who don't
Life
know,
once again.
Yeah, Extra Life is an all-day gaming marathon to raise money for children's hospitals. DJ and I are committed to playing all day. We're trying to raise a little money to support the hospitals in our communities. We would love for you to support us that day. You can go to vghangover.com/extralife for more info. You can watch us stream all day at twitch.tv/VGHangover. And we're going to start like 6 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, and go until DJ falls asleep somewhere on the West Coast.
That's so early. I'm going to be going to bed.
Yeah. I usually do a 6 a.m., but I'm going to push it, and maybe just until 7 this time.
Ooh, all right.
Just get a little extra sleep. Because inevitably...
Just so decadent.
I want to start at 6, but I spend 15 minutes running around and making coffee and letting the dogs out and blah, blah, blah. So, I'm going to do 7. Still get up at 6, just give myself a little bit of a padding so I don't feel like super rushed to get on the camera.
Oh, yeah. It was a real nightmare when we would do, like, each of us individually would do 24 hours. Because it was more, it always ended up being more than 24 hours, because you do, like, the pre-prep, and then it's not like you finish up the 24th hour, and then you immediately pass out in bed.
Right. Plus, it's set your clock forward hour thing, so you actually end up doing 25 hours just to be complete.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if you're not paying attention.
Like, if you somehow get tricked into it.
I thought it was 2 a.m. already. We got another hour to go.
Yeah. So, we go for a combined 24-hour stretch between DJ and I, and, maybe do a little screaming on Sunday when we wake up and feel refreshed and want to start over again. But, I feel like we meet the criteria. We do the thing.
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, between the both of us, we do more than 24 hours.
Yeah. So
we're covered.
Absolutely. But we've got a ton of stuff on the docket for that day. We are going to stream morning, noon, and night. If you go to twitch.tv/VGHangover, we inevitably will be streaming something at some point during the day. You can catch what? We're going to do Animal Crossing. We're going to do some Boyfriend Dungeon. DJ wants to play Super Metroid. That's kind of fun.
That's my retro game for this year.
Cool.
I figure,
we will be co-oping.
Might as well play a good Metroid game.
Oh, man. Hot take. I keep listening to video game podcasts that are just like over the moon about Metroid Dread.
I don't understand it. I mean, I had issues with that game. Yeah. I liked some of it. I don't think it was a masterpiece. I keep seeing that word thrown around. Like really? I don't know. Sorry, not to get off topic from Extra.
Yeah, sure.
Again, we're very focused here on the show.
So Super Metroid is going to be streaming. DJ and I are going to co-op. We're going to play It Takes Two, and we're going to play We Were Here Together. I'm trying to get a game of Back 4 Blood going if anybody wants to squad up. DJ is going to play The Good Life. We got all kinds of stuff going.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I mean, we got 24 hours to fill, so it kind of has to be. You
got Spelunky and Spelunky.
I will be playing both Spelunky 2 and also Spelunky 2 later in the evening.
Excellent. So yeah, Saturday, November 6th. Come watch us play video games. Maybe chip in a couple bucks if you're feeling up to it and you have the means to. But otherwise, just be super positive and keep us going. Yeah. We'll take that too.
Especially in those weird early morning hours where we've been up for a while. It's always fun to see who drops by the chat.
Cool. So, are you prepared, DJ? Are you sufficiently stocked up on caffeine and, I don't know, what other supplies do you need to get through an Extra Life?
I think I'm good. Man, I used to go all out. I would have the little canned espresso shots, just hanging out in the fridge. I don't know if that was healthy, but I've got coffee ready to go. I have some healthy snacks. I think it'll be fine.
Excellent.
This is our 8th year doing this. We're pros at this point.
Right,
Not even worried about it.
Yeah. I've already prearranged for my midday burrito. Sarah's going to hit Nito Burrito and come back with a giant home wrecker for me. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, it should be good. I won't eat that on cam.
Just what you need to stay awake.
Right, exactly. No one has ever been put to sleep by a burrito before. So yeah, I got that to kind of like fuel my midday, feel that last couple of hours push across the finish line.
Got it.
Yeah, it should be good. I'm excited.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's always a good time. So we've been playing this week. We played some video games. I checked out this new Pikmin joint.
Oh yeah. What is this about? I unfortunately have not really gotten to try it out yet. Because I didn't even realize it had come out. I just saw somebody tweeting about it a few days ago. And then, surprise, you can play it already.
It was kind of a stealth drop from Nintendo, Pikmin Bloom. This it kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know it was happening. I got a little alert in YouTube that was like, hey, Nintendo just released a trailer for Pikmin Bloom. I'm like, cool, new Pikmin game coming. And then below the trailer, there was a link to download it right away. And I was like, oh, it's here. It has arrived. I can play Pikmin right now.
The Pikmin are here.
Yeah. So this is one of those AR games in the vein of, Pokemon Go.
Sure.
And several hundred other AR games that have come and quickly gone from the world.
Yeah. Pokemon Go is still hanging in there, though.
Yeah. But not so much that Harry Potter one or the Ghostbusters one or...
Was there a Ghostbusters one?
There was briefly. I don't know if it still exists, but I remember it being a thing. Yeah.
The Dragon Quest one is supposedly really good, but
oh, really?
That is only in Japan.
Oh, bummer.
I think just the way it's set up. I mean, it's much easier. I guess it's just better suited for the average Japanese person's lifestyle in terms of like how they get around, I suppose.
Sure. Getting out into the world.
I think it may have also used actual like landmarks around Japan, which would have been tough if they brought it over here. But anyway, needless to say, I did not play that one, unfortunately.
So Pikmin Bloom is actually developed by Niantic, the folks that do Pokemon Go. So it has that pedigree, and it seems like a little bit of that structure built into it, in that this is a thing that is trying to incentivize you to get off your lazy ass and go outside and walk around.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you do that, little Pikmin follow you around, little woodland sprites, little outdoorsy creatures who have flowers growing from their heads, will follow you as you walk around in the real world and also, concurrently in the app, and leave a trail of flowers all over your little city. And they'll bring you fruit and other little collectibles. Somebody brought me a Mario hat the other day. That was kind of fun. Yeah, and there are little icons all over my modestly sized East Coast city that have giant flowers growing in front of them. And apparently if you walk to one of those places, there is a thing. There's something that happens. I don't know yet because I've not walked to one of them, but I'm intrigued by their placement on the map.
Are those just like the Pokemon gyms from Pokemon Go?
I don't...
If you played that.
No, I didn't play it, so I don't get that reference. What is that?
Oh, you didn't play it at all?
No.
There are just landmarks around the world, and in Pokemon Go, you would walk over to them, and that's where you would do like Pokemon battles.
Oh.
I think they just imported landmarks from Niantic's previous game. I can't remember the name now. They had another one of these AR games, and that's how they were able to just come up with all the infrastructure for Pokemon so quickly.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like they've probably just done it again. Just import the gyms, which were like in turn imported from this other thing. Man, what was the other game? I can't remember.
Here in Harrisburg, it looks like most of the landmarks that have the big flowers growing in front of them on the map are, there's a lot of fire stations, there's a few churches, and there's community gardens, which makes sense, I guess, given the context of this thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's murals. We have a mural festival in Harrisburg, I think once or twice a year. So we have murals all over the city on big walls everywhere. And it seems like almost every mural in the city has a corresponding flower growing in front of it, which is kind of cool to go out and see all the murals and stuff. So Harrisburg has the sort of benefit of being pretty walkable. I imagine if I lived in the suburbs somewhere, it would be a lot harder to hit all these things. So Yeah, I'm not sure sort of what concessions are made for, Pokemon Go or Pikmin Bloom players who live, you know, outside of a major metropolitan area.
Yeah, it's not the easiest. There aren't tons of gyms around where I live, but like when I was playing Pokemon Go, once in a while I take it up to San Francisco, or I remember the month it came out, I had a trip down to LA, and it was just madness because like everybody was out walking around and there were gyms all over the place. It was just such a weird phenomenon.
Yeah, we had the similar phenomenon, I think, when Pokemon Go was kind of at its height of insanity. During the pandemic? It might have been during the pandemic. And when going out and sort of walking outdoors was generally considered to be safe and one of the few places you could actually go and do something. And we would go down the Riverwalk here, and it would just be people everywhere catching Pokemons.
I mean, that was way before the pandemic. This came out in like 2016, I think.
Well, maybe then I'm thinking of a resurgence of it last year, because I vaguely recall those two things kind of corresponding.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, unless I've merged them in my brain somehow.
I thought I haven't played Pokemon Go in a while, but I thought they rolled out some update which made it easier to like play the game and go to the gyms and everything without having to go out, because they were trying to minimize, or they're trying to discourage people from going out and gathering,
from congregating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I forget where this ended up, but there was some discussion like they were going to just get rid of it because they felt like it had been long enough, and they just decided the pandemic ended, so it was fine. But it turned out it was like really helpful for people who didn't live around gyms and lived in more remote areas, like you were saying. So
cool.
There was some interest in keeping that around. I'm not sure what they ended up doing with it.
Yeah. Pikmin Bloom thus far does not seem to have a battle component to it. I don't know, that would seem pretty off-brand for Pikmin, I think. Mostly it is about sort of collecting different colors and stripes and varieties of Pikmin as you go out and explore. You can, the more steps you do, the more you can kind of lure Pikmin to grow Pikmin to follow you around. You get a bigger kind of cavalcade of Pikmin who follow you. I can now have up to 7 Pikmin who follow me around.
Wow.
Yeah, you get these little boosts that allow you to do, 10% more flowers as you walk, 20% more flowers as you walk for an hour. And you plug those in and, spread flowers all over the city of Harrisburg, which has been kind of fun to look at the map and see sort of the trails of flowers that I've left and see how they sort of correspond and overlap with other people on the map who are kind of filling the city full of flowers.
What's the benefit of having flowers? Is you just collect more like Pikmin seeds from that?
Yeah, I think so. In the sort of crush of flowers that are growing around your feet, Pikmin pull up, little fruits, and you can turn the fruits into nectar to feed the Pikmin, and they grow little flowers out of their heads with that, and that in turn allows them to grow more flowers, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it is pretty unabashedly a pedometer. It doesn't really, like, I'm still trying to figure out, like, what's the game here? It has motivated me to, like, go explore and look around and interact with I almost said Pokemon, the Pikmin a little bit. But more than anything, it's just a step counter. And it has my little me guy in a hoodie and a pair of shorts walking around the city. I'm still not entirely certain, like, what the end game is, if there is an end game, what my objective is, other than fill the city full of flowers. That's cool. I'll take that. That's fun.
Yeah.
I don't mind walking around. I'm a walker. I like walking. But I'm not sure exactly what the video game here is. I get the collect them all mentality of the Pokemon thing. I get sort of the Pokemon encounters and battling other players and et cetera, et cetera. There is not a construct like that in Pikmin Bloom. It feels very much like it's just counting my steps and I'm growing flowers and I don't know what else is happening.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, a huge part of the appeal of Pokemon Go was just like you'd have to go to different areas to find different Pokemon that you were missing.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what the equivalent is in Pikmin. Plus, there are only like 5 or 6 types of Pikmin, right? So I don't know what you'd be collecting after a certain point.
Yeah. Like I said, there's the sort of the special one that has the little Mario hat now. I assume there are other specials. There are other... Maybe there's one in a Zelda hat or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's kind of all I've encountered thus far. We were in DC over the weekend. We went to a show on Saturday night, and as I was walking from the hotel to the show with Sarah, I fired up the little app, and I'm like, oh, maybe I could find some Pikmin in DC. And it was the same blue and red Pikmin that I found in Harrisburg as well. Right. So, yeah. But now in my little cadre of Pikmin, if I tap on one of them, it says, you found this one in Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of fun. And I can name him. So I named him after the band.
Don't lose track of that one.
Yeah, I named him after the band that I went to see. So I have a Pikmin named Alkaline Trio now. Yeah, I don't know what else I'm doing here. I feel like I'm still sort of trying to suss out what is the game in Pikmin Bloom.
Do you have all the Pikmin varieties yet?
I don't. No, I've not found all of them yet. I know there's like the little black rock ones and stuff like that. I've not encountered any of them yet. So I don't know what the criteria are for finding more or rare or I don't know what's the term from Pokemon legendary Pikmin. Is that a thing that exists? I have no idea.
I don't remember that being a thing, but I didn't play the
Exotics?
latest Pikmin either. Exotic Pikmin,
yeah. I don't know.
Well, I just downloaded this. I haven't made it farther than like character creation. So over the next week, I will try and get into it and see if I can figure out what's going on.
I will do the same. I want to go hit some of these little hotspots around the city where there are giant flowers growing on the map and see what's there. If there is a thing to do that perhaps I'm overlooking. But yeah, I don't know. It's cute. It's a super cute pedometer. And it has inspired me to walk places. That's a plus. We'll take that. Anything that sort of gets me to, willingly submit myself to exercise is a good thing. But, yeah, I don't know. It feels much less focused than what I believe to be true about the Pokemon Go experience.
Yeah. It feels like, I don't know. In some ways, that feels more true to like the Pikmin vibe.
Sure.
That, it's just about chilling out in nature or whatever.
Yeah.
As opposed to, dog fighting. Whatever they do in Pokemon. I have to say, even at the when it was the most I ever was in Pokemon. God, I can't keep it straight. Why do they just make two games with the same name?
Yeah.
When I was the most I was ever into Pokemon Go, I would kind of like keep tabs on the gym that was down my street because you could take it over for your team, and other teams could try and like compete for ownership. So every couple of days, I'd notice it changed color and be like, I'm not going to stand for that. But
you gotta go defend your turf.
Yeah, I just could not compete with the people who were like really into it though, because they would just have way stronger Pokemon and stuff like that. So it was a losing battle. So I don't know, maybe Pikmin would be more my speed.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there is an intense sense of competition here. It has a friend construct, which DJ and I kind of played with before we got on the mic tonight, where I can add him to my friend list and vice versa. And the only functionality with friends, it seems like you can go for walks with friends, which increases the number of flowers that you can kind of simultaneously create in your city, which is kind of fun, but DJ and I don't live in the same city. But we can send each other postcards as well. You have to pay for the postcards, so I'm not entirely certain what the postcards do other than allow me to say hello to you. I can send you Pikmin or I can send you petals or something. I'm not sure what, if there's something I can attach to the postcard that makes it desirable in some way. But maybe we still have to suss some of these things out.
Pokemon Go had that feature where you could send people, I forget how exactly it worked, but basically if you had walked by a gym, you could send that gym to somebody and, it would be a cool little like, hey, here's a landmark from my area, that kind of thing.
Oh, like if they weren't in your city, they could still fight in that gym?
Yeah, well, no, it was just, I forget what the point was. It was like they would get some sort of bonus, like an extra egg or something every day if you would send this to them. But you would have to send them like one of the gyms you walked by, so they would just get a picture of a local landmark. So it was kind of like pen pals or something.
Hmm.
I just know that somehow I ended up with a bunch of like Japanese Pokemon Go players on my list. So occasionally I'd get some cool like sculpture from whatever city they were in Japan and be like, oh, nice. I'll just send them like the Mountain View train station or something.
Here's the Starbucks near my house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely sent the Starbucks to people plenty of times.
Excellent. Cool. It's fun. I don't. I still don't know what the point is, but if the point is really just to make me go for walks, then cool, that works.
Yeah. Could be worse things to do with your time.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. What else you played, DJ? What did you play this week?
I played this game, Dungeon Encounters, which I feel like has gotten largely overlooked. It was revealed. I'm pretty sure it was revealed for the first time. It was a Nintendo Direct a couple of weeks ago, maybe like longer than that at this point. And it is just a weird game. It's like an ultra minimal kind of dungeon crawler RPG, essentially. One of the most interesting things about it is, so it's directed by Hiroyuki Ito, who is a longtime Final Fantasy developer. He directed Final Fantasy VI and worked on several of the notable gameplay systems in a bunch of those games. But most notably, he invented the active time battle system, which is basically the framework for all modern Final Fantasy games. Well, I mean, at least up to a certain point. But this was like the hallmark battle system. And incidentally, while I was looking this up, I found out that he actually, the active time battle is patented in both Japan and America, which I thought was hysterical. So, someday I have to look up that patent and see what that looks like. But anyway.
And quickly, in summary, for those of us who are not Final Fantasy nerds, what's the hook with active time battle? Well,
so in most RPGs up to this point, in fact, in Final Fantasy games up till Final Fantasy IV was the first game that had this active time system, you just have, typical turn-based battles. You queue up commands for all your guys, and the enemy does the same, and then they all execute, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with active time, it takes into account sort of each character's speed stat, and what it does is it turns that into a little meter that fills up. So if you have a faster or higher speed stat, the meter fills up faster. And once it's filled, you can take your turn. And, depending on what difficulty setting you're playing it on, as you're taking your turn, as you're selecting commands from the menu, just everybody's meter continues to fill up. So it kind of adds this time pressure to battles. But generally, it keeps things very lively, and it's not quite as doesn't feel quite as static as just picking things off a menu, because there's this this time pressure taking place.
Oh, interesting. And if you have a high speed stat, then the likelihood of you being able to get in more attacks than somebody who has a slower stat is probably good if you're responsive and quick enough.
Yeah. Plus, you have all these interesting mechanics where you could cast a slow spell on someone, so their turn comes up much slower. Or you could cast a haste spell, which is that's always the best. That's what you want. You could freeze somebody so their meter stops moving at all. Lots of cool stuff you could do with it. But overall, very cool battle system.
Yeah.
Very I was just looking at the his list of credits, and it's all a lot of very mechanical sort of gameplay stuff. But very cool, especially as a Final Fantasy fan. This game though is hilarious because it just feels like they have stripped away so much of I don't know, so much of just the I don't want to say cruft, because it's not necessarily, it sounds like it has a negative connotation, but this is so minimal, this game. The premise could not be more simple. Basically, there is this town with this adventure academy in it, and one day this labyrinth appears next to the town. It's filled with monsters, of course, and now you just join all these adventurers heading into this labyrinth to figure out what the deal is. And I don't even know if they're in it for the treasure, or they just want to put it into all these monsters, but just classic RPG premise from before they had these like grand storylines and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, even better, the presentation, there are no these AAA landscape environments. There are no towns. There's hardly any animation. The game just starts up and you're given a menu. You're at the Adventurer Academy of all these like party members you can recruit. So you're just staring at a menu. So you end up recruiting some party members, and it drops you into what I guess is the closest thing you get to the town in this game, and that there are no monsters roaming around, and there are a bunch of shops you can visit before heading off into the labyrinth. But it basically looks like a crossword puzzle. There's no sort of like, it's very abstract. So you're just on a grid, and on the grid there are a bunch of numbers on it representing the shops and different amenities you can visit in the town. So no graphical representations of anything, really. Except for your character, who is just hanging out on this grid. The battles are kind of presented in the same way, where it's just character portraits with their hit points and stats next to them, facing off against a row of enemy character portraits, which is really it's kind of hysterical on some level, just how minimal this game is.
So do you feel like this is a sort of conscious design choice? Is there some sort of like philosophy behind making it so minimalist, or does it feel like just sort of a lack of resources?
Well, I don't know if I would say it's a lack of resources, but it definitely feels like it's a reaction to, games have just gotten so expensive and difficult to produce at sort of the level of production that people expect, especially like JRPGs, which at one time felt like they were just the most expensive genre of video games in the world.
Sure.
It just feels like
in a lot of ways sort of evolved to be very sort of similar to each other in a lot of ways, so much so that I have trouble telling them apart sometimes.
Sure. I don't know if that factored into the decision to go this route, but it feels like, hey, what if we didn't need to make a game that had all this nice like window dressing, and it was really just about like super interesting gameplay mechanics? Because that seems like what Hiroyuki Ito is about. That's sort of his work history.
Yeah. So steer it more in the direction of cool mechanics and interesting battles, and less from the world of giant open world RPGs.
Yeah, exactly. So like, what if we just wanted to make a really interesting gameplay experience? We don't care so much about the story or the characters and all that. And I have to say, I am having such a good time with this so far. I was a little skeptical because I was like, how interesting could this be, moving people around on a sheet of graph paper?
Yeah.
But it's actually super good.
Cool.
Again, it takes some getting used to just how like stripped down and kind of like distilled the mechanics are. So not only do you have these maps, which are just like, you don't even have staircases on the map to go down to the next floor. Everything that you encounter on the maps is represented by a number. So when you start out on level 0, which is the town, on the grid, this just makes it look even more like a crossword puzzle. There's just a 00 in the middle of the grid, and that you learn represents the Magic Academy, where you recruit everybody. And then around there, you'll see like a 01, 02, 03, and then you have this little guide that tells you, so whenever I see like a 04, that's essentially an inn or like a campsite where my guys can rest to regain their ability points. And over here is number 14, that's the weapon shop, and number 15 is the armor shop next to it. It's very just weird and abstract, kind of hysterical in a way.
And are you required to remember these things, or is there a little key that you can consult that reminds you of what all these numbers indicate?
You can just push the left stick at any time, and it'll bring up the key to
cool.
What all these mean. But eventually, like you end up learning, like, okay, 01 is always the stairs down to the next level, and then 02 would be stairs going up to the previous level. So as you're making your way through these floors, you're always kind of on the lookout for significant numbers. Those are the white numbers on the grid. You'll also run into black numbers, which represent battles that you have with enemies. And they are just, they're just hanging out on squares on the grid. They're not moving around or anything. So it's up to you to decide whether you really want to get into an encounter, or maybe you can find an alternate route around them. But there's nothing like random encounters or anything you have to deal with. Just sometimes your path will be blocked, and you inevitably have to fight one of these things.
Got it.
But the battle system is very good, as you might expect from something developed by Hiroyuki Ito. Again, it takes some getting used to. As I was trying to recruit my characters at the beginning, I was trying to figure out just like why I would want to pick one character over another, because the roster you get at the start, it seems like everybody has very similar stats. And it seems like at the beginning, they really only have a couple innate stats, which are their hit points, which should be kind of self-explanatory. And then they have a speed stat, which is just how quickly their active time gauge fills up. And then I realized that a lot of sort of the character definition comes from how you equip them, and that is all dependent on they have one more stat, which is their proficiency points, and that dictates basically what equipment and abilities you can assign to them. So like if you want to give them a piece of armor, it costs a certain number of points, and after you've maxed out their points, you can't load them up on anything else. And I was like, okay, that seems pretty familiar. That's just sort of like an encumbrance system from any other game.
Right. How much you can carry around.
Yeah.
Are you steering them in the direction of like classes or types or anything like that? Or are you just sort of like trying to kit them out in ways that seem sort of efficient and relevant to what your objectives are?
Well, that was what I was wondering when I started this, because I was looking at this roster and I was like, okay, so this guy, like they have character portraits, and I was trying to suss out what information I could about them based on these portraits. I'd be like, this guy looks like, typical JRPG protagonist. I wonder if that means he's a strong physical fighter. This guy looks like a wizard, maybe. This guy, I don't know what this guy looks like. There's just like another guy who has like a big like tiger head. Just pretty weird cast of characters.
Got it.
But it seemed like, everybody, when you just look at their innate stats, are like pretty similar. So I just grabbed 4 random people, including that tiger head guy, and sort of started playing around with their starting equipment, because they all come with stuff assigned to them. And this is where I feel like it just really, really boils down sort of like equipment and gameplay systems from every other RPG you've played. So you've got like a whole list of weapons. Oh, actually, I should go over the stats first. So in addition to your hit points, you have these 2 defensive stats. You have a physical defense stat and a magical defense stat. And what happens in battle, all the enemies have these same stats, is you either do a physical attack or a magical attack, and it will, reduce that character's or that enemy's physical or magical defense. And once one of those is depleted, if you hit them with another either physical or magical attack, it will start chipping away at their hit points. And, once you deplete all their hit points, then they're dead and you win the battle. So it's almost like they have these 2 shields that you have to get through before you start doing any damage to them.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I follow.
And, same thing with your party. You have these, you have physical and magical defense. The interesting thing is that though both of those restore after each fight, so you really only have to keep track of their, like if they've taken a lot of HP damage. So naturally you want to give each character either a weapon or a magic spell so they can do physical or magical damage. So I headed over to the weapon shop, and they've got this huge arrangement of weapons and everything. I was like, oh man, look at all this stuff. How do I equip my guys? Do I give them like a sword? Do I give them a lance or a bow? What does this even mean in a game that is like this simplified? And I think it's It's best to describe how the sort of battle system works by talking about how, like, what's on sale at the magic shop. Because basically you go in and you go to the magic shop and you're like, I'm going to get some cool spells. I'm going to get some fire spells and ice spells and all that good stuff. And you go in there and there's really just one spell. Except there are 17 versions of it. So here's the level 1 spell, and then it goes all the way up to level 17. And then you have these 3 different versions of it. So the basic one does like damage to a single target. And then you have a version of it that does damage to all targets.
Ooh.
And then you have a version that does a random amount of damage to a single target. And then you have a version that does random amount of damage to all targets. And those are the 4 types of magic spells in this game. And you have 17 levels of each of those spells.
Ooh.
And then the weapons work essentially the same way. So, despite the weapons having much more, they have regular weapon names instead of the magic spells having like 4 names across the entire arsenal. But basically, like, swords attack one target, does a fixed amount of damage. If you have an axe, it does a random amount. What is it? I think a javelin does damage to all enemies, and then I think I just found a gun which does a random amount to all enemies. So it's really like, I don't know. I was amazed when I figured this out, just how much they have kind of simplified the approach to equipping your guys. It's like, do I want a guy who just does a ton of damage to one enemy at a time? Or, I can spend the same amount of proficiency points and equip him with something which does, a little less damage, but it'll hit everybody. That might be more useful.
That's generally where I go in an RPG, is I want to
hit everybody.
Hit everybody as much. Yeah. I don't know. There's something to be said for being kind of the heavy that does 100 points XP of damage in a single shot. But, if I can do 20 to all 5 guys, that feels like progress. That feels like I have a better chance of wiping out the whole team in a single shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. And I feel like I'm at the point where I am now, I'm definitely using a lot more of the target everybody attacks. Because I feel like what you want to do is just go in and do a ton of damage to their either physical or magical shields, and then just have somebody follow it up so you can start damaging their hit points. But you have to be mindful; it has to be the same type of damage. So if you have somebody who can only do magic damage, he's not going to be very useful if you've depleted all of their physical defense, because then they can only start attacking their magical defense.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But it's very interesting because the enemies you meet will have sort of different balances of all these stats. The skeletons very early on will only have 1 hit point, so you really just have to get through one of their shields to just take them out. But later on there will be a golem which doesn't have either. It has 0 physical and magical defense, but it just has a ton of hit points. Then for some reason, there are sharks in the dungeon and they have no magical defense. So if you have somebody who has a bunch of magical spells, just go nuts on those sharks immediately, and you can get right into their hit points.
Seems random.
Yeah, I'm not sure why sharks work that way in this game, but whatever.
Just setting themselves up for a possible Shark Week crossover.
Yeah.
The Discovery Channel presents
Sharks versus Wizards.
Right. I'd play that game. I'm in. Let's do that. Let's not play that.
Yeah. I chalk it up to just, I don't know why there are sharks in this dungeon. Feels like they're probably not in water at that point, so I don't know. Maybe that just drops their magical stats for whatever reason, but
right.
It's got to put them at a definite disadvantage. But you run into to all these different enemies who have weird, different balances of these stats, and others will have further unique conditions. Some will be flying, so you need specific. I think you need ranged weapons to hit them. Some will just reflect all of your magic attacks. So again, if you've just doubled down and give everybody on your team attacks that only hit the entire team at once, you're going to have a bad time with those guys. And what I found is that at first I was really okay, let's just, buy the most powerful stuff in every weapon shop so we can, just do as much damage as possible and get through these battles as quickly as possible. But what I realized is that since you're limited by these proficiency points, you really have to be more mindful about what you're equipping. So, like, I had this magic spell that was doing 300 points of damage every turn, but the enemies would only have like around that level, like 100 points or 100 hit points max. So really, I was just like doing way too much damage. It was just like total overkill. And I realized it probably would have made more sense to have like a lower potency spell and invest in some better defensive equipment.
Oh, and that would give you some of your proficiency points back to be able to do more stuff.
Yeah. Because it's funny, it's like you're so limited in sort of the things you can do in battle. You can basically just attack. You don't really get any healing spells. Characters on an individual basis don't get any healing spells. You have like kind of a party heal you can break out every once in a while. But it's not like you have designated roles, like here's the tank and here's the healer. You basically just have a bunch of attackers, at least at the point where I am. So you really have to be mindful about like all of their stats. You want to make sure that nobody's getting taken out, like nobody gets one shot in one turn because they didn't have high enough magic defense because you decided you wanted that huge sword that did way too much damage. Or way too more damage than you needed at that point in the dungeon.
Right.
So the battle system is very interesting. And despite that this game is like it's just a lot of battles because, either you're exploring the dungeon or you're in a fight. The fact that it is like the presentation is so minimal, it's super fast to get in and out of a battle. They're like very tactically interesting because you're always trying to figure out like, okay, so do I go for the physical shield or do I attack the magical shield? Which one of these can I potentially take out before their meter fills up? Because some of these enemies, they can get pretty dangerous. I don't know which enemy did this, but they hit one of my characters with a petrification spell. And at that point, I was just like, oh no, I guess I need to find some petrification cure item. But that's fine, because, if you get petrified in any other RPG, it's not a huge deal, I feel like. But in this one, so I finished that battle, and so the first thing on my mind was like, okay, let's go find a cure for this. And I try and move to the next square, and it says, oh, your party member is petrified, so you have to leave him here. I was like, what?
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, I guess I have no choice but to just do that. So now I'm down to 3 party members. And also, I step off the square, and there's no indication at all that there's just a character hanging out there. It's sort of recorded in the Academy roster. It's weird because but even at the very beginning of the game, you can go to the Academy, and you can just see a list of way more characters than you recruit. It'll show you the ones that are available at the Academy, but it'll also show you listings for characters who are just lost in the dungeon at that point. But what is interesting is it will show you sort of their coordinates and what floor they're on. So if you pay attention to that and you get down to the floor that they're lost on and you find the square where they are, you can potentially recruit them into your party. So I had to leave my petrified guy there, but at least it kind of marked it down for me so I could recover him later. But the game does
interesting.
Yeah. It's a weird approach to it, and it's in line with sort of the way the game expects you to approach these dungeons, in that it likes to give out weird little clues like that. Like occasionally you'll run into a puzzle square, and which will say something like, oh, if you go to these coordinates on another floor, there might be a treasure chest hidden there. And so at that point, you just have to jot it down on a piece of paper. At least that's what I've been doing.
Oh, it doesn't put a little icon on the map for you later?
Oh, no. Yeah. Some of them are math puzzles you have to figure out. So you have to solve a riddle to come up with the coordinates and that sort of thing.
Oh, interesting.
You will also get these spells that let you instantly move up or down a floor, provided that there is an open tile on either the floor above or below you. And that one, I like. There are a few cases where there's like clearly, where it was like the solution to a puzzle. So you have to be on a specific tile on a certain floor. But this one I've just not really taken full advantage of yet because I don't have just a coordinate map of every single floor. But I can imagine you can save a lot of time if you just know where specifically on each floor you can kind of just hop between levels without having to like trudge your way all the way over to the staircase on each floor and potentially fight a bunch of enemies along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of really interesting things like that kind of make it feel like you're playing an old, I don't know, like not exactly a pen and paper or like tabletop RPG, but just one of those old games where you had to almost maintain your own map and like take notes of what was going on.
Right.
So that's interesting and also kind of unexpected.
Yeah, and it seems to sort of put, and this is your observation from earlier, kind of mechanics over anything else. So and I suspect you're not sort of treating any of these characters as kind of too precious or somebody that you can't kind of live without as a team. If there's a possibility that you will end up leaving somebody behind at some point or encountering another character that you can kind of swap into the team in place of somebody. So yeah, is that accurate? You're not necessarily sort of like role-playing, a hero or a character on the team that is irreplaceable.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I actually just don't know what to think at this point. Because I don't know. Like, again, I'm still sort of unclear on what exactly sets the characters apart, if there is any meaningful distinction between many of them.
Yeah.
I've heard that there are characters you recruit later on that have unique abilities, which end up being very powerful. But up until this point, I think the only thing I've really noticed is that, like after gaining a bunch of levels, that one of my characters seems to have way fewer hit points, but I guess in exchange he has way more like proficiency points, so he can equip better armor relative to his level. But yeah, I'm not really especially attached to any of them in the sense that I couldn't just train up somebody else and give them the same equipment and they'd perform in a similar way.
Right.
Because at this point, it really feels like it's more about how you compose your party. It's like, okay, do I want I want a group of like strong magical attackers, or do I want people who focus on physical attacks, and just how you balance all the different little toggles around that. But I'm also not super far into this. At this point, it feels like a pretty typical dungeon crawler. You're just going from floor to floor and healing up whenever the enemies get a little too strong for you. But in the trailer for this game, they show off a bunch of crazy stuff. Like, it looks like later on you're just like hopping between tiles on the map, or at some point somebody falls through like a trapdoor that was hidden on the map. I'm like, oh, that sounds unpleasant. I wonder what else they have up their sleeve once you get further into the dungeon. Because I think I'm maybe 10 floors down. I played it for about 5 hours, and there are 99 floors total, or at least that's what there appears to be. So, not really sure how the progression is going to work out, but it seems like it could potentially be a pretty substantial experience.
And how does it handle like a team wipe? If everybody dies, do you start over? Do you get to pick up where you left off? Is it is it a roguelike, or is it, go back to the nearest village and heal up and start over again?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I haven't allowed that to happen yet. I've been playing pretty cautiously. Good. Well, also, I'm just super pro. No, I mean, yeah. I'm paranoid because I don't know what will happen. Like, it would be terrible if I lost all those characters. I was traumatized enough having to leave that petrified guy behind. I was just like, oh no. Can't let this happen again.
Leave no man behind.
Yeah. And I wish I had an answer for you, but I've also been like avoiding looking up stuff about this game just because it keeps throwing stuff at me that is just very surprising. And I would hate to like spoil some of it for myself.
Sure, that's fair. Absolutely.
I can't imagine it would just kill all your characters, because then you could potentially get to the point where you just can't make any more progress, and that seems like it would be a bummer. But I don't know. Maybe that's what happens.
And JRPGs are decidedly anti-bummer. It's just not about bumming people out. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Like, you could just let all your guys get petrified. You could just make incredibly poor decisions and not be able to progress further into the dungeon. But I'm not sure exactly how it works.
Well,
but
good.
anyway,
I hope you never find out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I hope I never find out what it's like to, lose my entire party. That'd be terrible. I am just having a great time with it. It's kind of mindless because it's just, walking around on a grid trying to find the staircase down to the next level, fighting some battles, which are very enjoyable, but it's also like slightly grindy at the same time. But having a good time with it. I really enjoy, like sometimes maybe I don't need an elaborate story in one of these games. Like the battles are interesting enough that it is holding my attention.
And somebody on the Discord posted, I think, the trailer and some screenshots of this a couple weeks ago when it was first announced, and I remember looking at it going, what is this crap?
Yeah, it's I can
like
see where
half
how
a video
it could be a
game.
little off-putting.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It doesn't sell itself in presentation. It would have to be mechanically interesting, I think, because I was just watching the trailer thinking, this doesn't feel like a video game.
Well, I mean, it depends on what your expectations of a video game are.
Yeah. Well, my expectations of RPGs are sort of colored by, obviously, experiences with Persona and Final Fantasy and things like that. So, that's my go-to mental image for what a game like this looks like.
Sure.
So it's cool that people are challenging that, but it just, at first blush, I was like, this is going to be a tough sell.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a tough sell for a lot of people, but for people who are just really into just having an unusual battle system and having just a dungeon full of weird secrets and strange mechanics, it's very unique. I feel like a game like this doesn't come around that often.
Cool.
So anyway, dungeon encounters, pretty good. I'd say if you're not, if you don't need expansive cutscenes in your RPGs, definitely worth taking a look at.
That's a bonus. I see that as a highlight. Definitely, that's a feature.
Yeah. Yep. No long-winded dialogue. In fact, no dialogue. So there you go.
Cool. I will quickly talk about Bonfire Peaks, which is a game that I spent some time with over the weekend. This is a puzzle game. It is done with a very sort of beautiful kind of voxel presentation where everything is made of tiny little cubes. It looks like a 3D 16-bit game, I guess is the way to sort of describe it. You are a character who is who has a lot of things, who has a lot of stuff, a lot of kind of weight and baggage in their life, and it is a series of puzzles where you have to figure out a way of carrying those things to the top of a hill, top of a mountain, and throwing those things, that baggage, into the fire.
Oh, like not emotional baggage, but just literal baggage.
Well, I mean, it could be emotional. There is a physical representation of it. It is a box of stuff and a box of things.
Oh, I see. Okay, so both physical and emotional baggage.
Sure.
Which you then literally throw into a fire.
Correct. The website for Bonfire Peaks says that it is a puzzle game about moving on.
Okay.
So this is a character who is motivated to sort of shed themselves of the weight of these things. And you get little hints throughout the course of the early hours of the game of what some of those things might be. Not a ton of narrative, not a ton of over-explaining happening here. It's a lot about kind of ambiance and mood and symbolism. But that works. It totally works because the puzzle mechanic continues to be kind of fun and engaging. It appears on the surface to be somewhat easy, but the more you kind of poke around at it, the more you realize there's quite a bit of complexity to it. It's one of those things that sort of slowly and subtly kind of builds on itself and will occasionally introduce new mechanics as you kind of get through it, new tools that you can use. Nothing crazy, but just, unique or interesting enough to completely kind of force you to rethink your approach to a lot of the way that you solve puzzles like this. The closest thing sort of mechanically that I can think of that feels like this are the sliding block climbing puzzles from Catherine.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a reference that you get or our listeners will get. I don't know how many people have played Catherine. But that is pretty challenging, pretty fast-paced. There's an element of that where, like, the puzzles at the bottom, the blocks at the bottom continue to, like, fall off, and other enemies are trying to come for you. So you're trying to slide blocks to create stairs that allow you to climb higher and higher and higher. You're trying to do that exact thing in Bonfire Peaks without the pressure of the ones at the bottom falling off, or without the pressure of monsters coming after you. There is a very sort of lazy kind of meditative quality to the music, to the presentation, to the tone of the thing, that makes it feel very sort of low pressure. And in fact, they give you a lot of tools to take away kind of the fear of breaking it, the fear of painting yourself into a corner that might come with a puzzle game like this, and that you always have the ability to use a single button press to back up one block, to back up one choice you've made recently, or to keep going. You hold it down and you just rewind all the way back. Yeah, if you hit another button, it completely resets the puzzle back to 0. And the fun thing is that you can kind of rewind from there even. So even if you do a total reset, you can still rewind back to previous attempts. Looking for a point at which you could, I was right. I was so close to the solution, but I just missed this choice or this puzzle or this block. So you can kind of rewind and kind of scrub through all of your previous decisions, up to the point where you feel like you made, I should have gone right instead of going left, and then change your mind and go a different direction that time, and hopefully lead you to the finale, which of course is you throwing the box of your things into the fire.
Right.
So, base referral to this, base review is it's a puzzle game. It's kind of challenging. It doesn't get in the way. It doesn't have any ticking clocks. It doesn't have any monsters chasing after you. It's kind of fun and chill in that way. But that does not mean it is not challenging, and occasionally quite frustrating as you try to figure out what the hell am I supposed to do here? How the heck do I even make this work? You have a fairly limited move set. But you do sort of discover things as you play with it and play with the tools that help you kind of work around some of the more infuriating challenges. Like, oh, hey, I can do a lot by just walking backwards up a flight of stairs, which is, not a thing that necessarily comes up in a tutorial, but just comes from you playing with the tools that are available in the game and trying to find, pathways for solving some of these puzzles. It's one of those things that even doesn't necessarily feel like maybe the developer intended that to be the case. So you feel like you're breaking it a little bit, but cool, that works. Whatever gets me to the top, man. Yeah. So I'm digging it. I've had a good time with it. I've gotten through the tutorial. I started getting into some of the kind of the heart of the game. A lot of different locations, a lot of different little biomes and stuff that you encounter. Little background information that is sort of conveyed through elements in the environment and things that would indicate sort of where this character is at and what their emotional baggage might be and why they might feel sort of a compulsion to move on from those things. Yeah, not a lot of very sort of overt storytelling or character building or anything like that, but just enough to go, oh, I get it. Okay, cool, excellent. let's go to the next puzzle. So yeah, I'm kind of digging it. I'm having a good time with it.
Nice. Would you say so? Does it feel like the creator said, I like Catherine, I'm gonna make that game, or a game based very closely around it, or is it just kind of coincidence?
I don't know. I feel like that's a weird jumping off point, particularly if you sort of take into account this creator's other games. They've made a series of puzzle games that I think are kind of not similar in presentation, but similar in structure. That again, that whole sort of concept of no ticking clocks, no fail states. If you paint yourself into a corner and make a poor choice, you can easily sort of reverse or reset from there. It's Dracnet is the developer here. They previously made what was the game that they did? Perfect Snowman is Hard to Build, I think is what it's called. And there's one about A Monster's Expedition, and I've played some of both of those games, or mobile games. Both of them, I think, are on the Switch as well. And you basically have a little character who has a suite of fairly sort of innocuous and easy to kind of understand moves, and those moves then sort of get extrapolated out to some insane degree that makes you feel like you're sort of mastering and learning how to sort of solve these kind of pretty intense puzzles. So it's this kind of unassuming presentation with a lot of surprising depth to it the more you kind of poke at it. Bonfire Peaks appears to be another way to me of achieving that. Yes, like in my brain, I tie it back to this other game I played where you climb blocks and try to reach the top, but it doesn't feel like somebody lifted that out of Catherine. It feels very much like a sort of a continuation of perhaps this developer's kind of personal mantra on how they make puzzle games.
Got it. Okay, I was just curious because Catherine has such a weird history in terms of sort of the community around it. Because I think at one point people were doing like competitive like Catherine matches, even though it is absolutely not a game where you would ever expect that to be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and the puzzle part of Catherine is such a weird, slight piece of the overall thing. The bulk of that game is not you solving those puzzles or climbing those towers. It's you more or less being a problematic dater of multiple women, and then you have sort of nightmares at night where all of those choices are kind of haunting you, and they're symbolized by this puzzle thing. But it's maybe 25% of the overall game of Catherine.
Right. I was just wondering if, maybe somebody had just latched onto that and been like, oh, why isn't this its own thing? Why hasn't there been like spin-offs based on this this particular mechanic? So that would have been interesting, but it sounds
could
like
be
it's not exactly what's happening.
And that's an easy reference. If you like the puzzle aspects of Catherine and wish it was just more of it, have I got a game for you? It's called Bonfire Peaks, but it does feel more like the developer's other games than it does Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe someday they will make that game, or maybe they already did. I don't know about it.
Maybe, yeah, I'm not aware. Like I said, I've played a lot of puzzle games. I've had to dig deep back into my kind of mental inventory of what other puzzle games are kind of like this, and I only landed on that one. So it didn't feel like Catherine begat an entire new world of how video games are made or how puzzle games are made. So yeah, it's cool that this exists and sort of has taken this shape.
Yeah.
So again, this is called Bonfire Peaks. The developer is Dracnet. Their previous games that I sort of stumbled through remembering the name of are A Monster's Expedition and A Good Snowman is Hard to Build. They're all really, really fun. They're all super easily accessible. Like I said, they're on mobile, they're on Android. I believe they're on iOS as well, and Steam and Switch. And I'm playing Bonfire Peaks on Switch as well. If any of this sounds appealing to you and you like a good, challenging puzzle game that doesn't have a lot of kind of BS mechanics like ticking clocks and other things like that to create unnecessary pressure, which always kind of hurts me when I play games like this. These are pretty easy to recommend, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
cool.
that about does it.
It's a nice, mellow puzzle game to follow up on all those terrifying games we were playing last week.
That was kind of my take on it. Is I need a palate cleanser. I need something that's a little less sort of like harrowing and bloody, and something a little more, kind of meditative and calm. So, Bonfire Peaks is that thing. There's a demo for it on the Switch as well, so I can recommend it based on that too if you want to check out. It's about an hour of gameplay. Actually, it's the entire tutorial. So would recommend folks digging into that to see if this is your thing.
Tutorial takes an hour?
It's pretty beefy, yeah. And you get a lot of little puzzles that kind of teach you different mechanics. So some of them are little puzzles that you'll solve in, 8 or 10 seconds of just thinking about it. But some of them are a little more complex, a little more built upon, that require you using, multiple previously learned tips and tricks and stuff like that. So that's good. It's fairly challenging. Never gets in the way of you having that little aha moment that I like in puzzle games so much, where you go, oh wait, no, I think I get it. Let's do this thing this time. Instead of going left, let's go right, and that is the pathway. Yeah. So yeah, it's good. I would recommend.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love your support this Saturday for Extra Life. Make sure you go to VGHangover.com/extralife or join us on Discord to find out about what we're playing, what we're streaming, when we're playing and streaming those things. You get a link to our Discord at VGHangover.com as well. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. And help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah. Really helps us get the word out, attract more listeners. We appreciate it a bit. Quite a bit, that is.
We appreciate it just a tiny little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit, I don't know what else to add on to that. Anyway, so I'll say this. I want to give thanks again to Hal Binderman this week for our intro and outro music. Please head on over to heavyviper.bandcamp.com. Check out some more of his stuff. Maybe buy an album or two.
Awesome. We will be back next week with our, at that point, it'll be the Extra Life wrap-up show. So tune in next week for that. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.